Let me drop a name that you probably haven't heard in a while. Darnell Deas. He may not be mentioned amongst the elite in the HBCU draft class, but I believe that he is the sleeper. Oh yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use the code Locked On College, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Diamond Johnson's fate. I started this at the very end of the WNBA draft, and it's not looking good. It is not looking good. In segment 2, we will take a look at David Wright, who is out of Clark, but not because of the transfer portal, but because his extra year of eligibility has been denied. I want to kick this thing off with a sleeper, though. When you're talking about the NFL draft and you're talking about HBCU prospects, right? Because this is draft month. We're a week away from draft week. So, of course, a lot of the conversation in our little sphere is going to be about what HBCU players can get drafted. Darnell Deas is not one of the names that you'll typically hear. And honestly, I'm not here to convince you that he will get drafted. But I'll say this. I think he's a sneaky pick who could hear his name called. And I think he's a sneaky pick who could be a preferred undrafted free agent. That's what I really feel like he slots in as a UDFA, but somebody who's going to end up getting a lot of money to join a team. That to me is a really big success, and I think is a reasonable goal, a reachable, attainable goal for Darnell Deas. When you talk about the draft class, you're going to name a lot of the wide receivers, quarterback. Well, we don't have no quarterbacks in the class, but running backs, defensive backs, linemen, offensive and defense. You're going to name a lot of positions, but one you're not really going to think about is kick returner. And the fact that kick returner is so separate, it's so separate from all of the positions that you think about. So much to a degree that some people don't even consider it a position. Be honest with you. You just call that guy whatever his offensive or defensive position is. But that uniqueness, that isolated, that select piece that Darnell Deas has, that's what I think makes him special. And I think that's what leads to him having a better shot of making a roster than a lot of our HBCU prospects. You can name your favorite HBCU player. He may even hear his name called. But I think that Darnell Deas has the clearest path to sticking because as you look at the NFL, they want to bring back the kickoff return. They're making a new rule where the touchback's going to come out even farther onto the field. So they're trying to do everything that they can to have teams kick it within play so that we can have more kickoff returns. Why not look at a guy like Darnell Deas, who has 6 kickoff return touchdowns in his career? The record is 7 on the FCS level. The record is 7. He has 6 over the course of his career at Bethune Cookman. He immediately has a skill set that I believe will be attractive to NFL scouts. That is the one thing that I'll say is we talk about smaller school prospects. We do all of these things, but we got to look at what some of the habits say. What do the habits say? The habits say that they're willing to take return specialists from smaller schools. What? Oh, that's the wrong side. Look at that. Saints report, right? Saints wire, excuse me. You're looking at Rashid Shaheed, who is now your number 2 receiver. He's obviously more than a return specialist, but he's out of Weber State. He's out of an FCS school. I'll use him as a little bit of a a bar, but Rashid Shaheed has the record, actually. He has the most kickoff returns in FCS history with 7. He was an undrafted free agent. So I'm not here to tell you that Darnell Deas is going to get drafted. I'm not. I think that it's a chance, but it's still a very much so long shot. I think that his best route is being a preferred UDFA. Rashid Shaheed got the 9th most guaranteed, I think. I think he got the 9th most guaranteed dollars out of all of the UDFAs. That's really good. That's really good. Will Darnell Deas get that? Maybe a little bit less because he wasn't as much of the offense. Like, he didn't really do anything. He was a defensive player, had a few pass breakups, a few tackles, but he wasn't. The stats don't blow you away. The stats wouldn't get him onto a draft radar. What gets him onto a draft radar is the fact that he has 6 kickoff returns for a touchdown. That's what gets him through the door. But excuse me. Rashid Shaheed had the 9th most undrafted, or excuse me, 9th most guaranteed dollars out of any undrafted free agent in his class. Let's say that Darnell Deas, with 1 less kickoff return, can be top 25. Let's say he can be top 25. If he's top 25, top 30, he's going to be top 2 on the team that he's at, more likely than not. And if Darnell Deas can come out of college and get a UDFA contract that's in the, let's say, like 300,000 guaranteed, something like that. Let me see. Anthony. I'm looking up the guaranteed dollars of one of the Saints guys. And he's amongst, let's see, several amongst the highest paid. Shout out Saints Wire again. I'm using this for it. So, yeah, 300 was excessive. Mark Evans, from a couple of years ago, he got 241 guaranteed. And I think that was one of the highest, like top 3 highest in the league at that point. Let's say that Darnell Deas can get 200. That's good. Like, I think that his skill set allows him to fall in that category. So 2 in each season, 2 in 21, 2 in 22, and then 2 in 24. But I checked. They say he's draft eligible. So I wanted to make sure, because I know sometimes this eligibility can be weird. I thought Ryan Stubblefield was out of eligibility. These guys who are listed as seniors always confuse me. They always confuse me, but I think that he is a draft sleeper, in my opinion. But yeah, they keep tweaking these rules. They keep wanting to make kickoffs more important. And there's a big difference. Here's the thing. Special teams is the way for all HBCU players to stick on a roster, because a lot of times you're going to be a late round pick. They're not picking you in the 3rd, 4th round. They're picking you in the 5, 6, 7. You have to show some sort of value that is beyond your position in those situations. I'd probably say 8 out of 10 times. It's rare that 5th, 6th, 7th round pick can solely be a tight end and they're valuable. Maybe they're a wide receiver who's also a gunner. Maybe they're a defensive back who's also a gunner. Like, those things are realistic, unless you're talking about being a lineman. But it's realistic to expect you to need special teams. For Darnell Deas, that is exactly what he is. That's his complete identity, to be a special teamer. So I think that if he can be the 3rd highest paid undrafted free agent on the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's a W. That's what we should look for. And though I'm not predicting him to get drafted, I still believe he's the sleeper of the draft, because his skill set is one that immediately translates to the NFL. It's one that the NFL is constantly looking for. And it's also something that we should discuss more. He's a great kick returner, great return specialist in a league that is trying to grow that aspect of their game once again. So, yeah, I think that he will be valued. Just seeing how much. That's what I'm looking for. Now, as we continue rolling, David Wright is out of Clark. Whew. I thought that he might be out of Clark already, but this is not the route I thought he would take. Let's break it down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, and Game Time is the only place that I go get my tickets. I'm thinking about going to SmackDown the Friday after WrestleMania. Game Time. I'm thinking about going to the Kendrick SZA concert, which would be the Saturday after WrestleMania. Game Time. It doesn't matter where I'm going. Maybe I want to see a playing game. My friend was talking about going to Detroit for a game. Had he not bought his tickets already, guess what I would have told that man? Game Time does not matter. Circus, concert, theater, comedy show, football game, basketball game, UFL game during the spring, college game during the fall. Doesn't matter what it is, what the sport is, what the activity. If you can buy tickets, you can get it on Game Time. So if I were you, where would I go? Game Time, and use the code Locked On College to get $20 off your first purchase. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft, because this is the best time to tap in with my guys. Locked On NFL Draft, it's only 2 weeks away. Make sure that you're checking them out. David Wright is out of Clark for now. They still want to see if they can get away for the quarterback to play another season with the Clark Atlanta Panthers. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've been predicting that David Clark will be out of Clark Atlanta. I've been predicting that David Wright will be out of Clark Atlanta for the majority of the offseason. I thought that Teddy Keaton would get picked up by another school. I actually been advocating for this. Pick him up, bring David Wright with you. Let's see what you can do on the FCS level. I thought that would have been a really fantastic route. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen now, because this would have been a bummer had you moved to who had an opening this year. Let's just do Delaware State. I feel like there was another SWAC opening that I can't think of right now, but let's just use Delaware State because I can't think of them. Or Prairie View. There we go. Teddy Keaton feels like a Prairie View guy. I just want to keep him in the South. But let's say that Teddy Keaton would have been selected for that Prairie View head coach opening. He probably would have brought David Wright with him. It's not like they have a solidified quarterback. You bring Wright with you, and then you find out that the eligibility of your quarterback is gone. I understand why they thought that Wright would have more years of eligibility. I certainly thought that he would have more years of eligibility because he played 4 seasons, yes. But in his sophomore year, he got hurt and tore his ACL just 5 weeks into the season. Now, where that becomes difficult is the fact that most times, if you tear your ACL, if you just don't play, but just 4 games, you'll get a red shirt. Like if you just play 4 games and that's it, you'll get a red shirt. If you get a injury like an ACL 5 games into the season, you would think that you would get. Oh man, that's tough to hear. That's tough. Anyway, sorry, I just checked to see, and Diamond Johnson didn't get drafted, but which I kind of felt because I was only 1 pick away, so I kind of felt like she wasn't gonna get drafted. But I was hoping, and where was I at with that though? Oh, so Wright played 5 games and tore his ACL. I would have thought that he was going to get a eligibility back too. I wonder when this was decided on. You would think this was when he was at Allen as a sophomore. You would think that this should have been a discussion already. You would have thought that this would have been solidified. There's no way you should have taken this down to the wire. That's just me thinking that they should have had this conversation because you played 4 years and you did play more than a 4 game that typically will get you a red shirt. I would have thought that they would have got this clarified. That being said, I for sure would have thought the answer was, yeah, of course you're going to get a red shirt. But that was the D2 committee. That was the D2 committee that said no. If David Wright can't go, this is a huge blow to a team that should have been competing for the SIAC championship. 100% is a huge blow because David Wright, after tearing his ACL, came back and won the SIAC Player of the Year back-to-back years, once with Allen, once with Clark. When Teddy Keaton took over this job, I don't know if people knew how quickly he would turn around the program, but a big part of that turnaround is David Wright. Wright had 7 touchdowns in the game. Wright was an explosive quarterback. He was a very productive guy who spearheaded multiple comebacks, multiple close wins. I don't think that you have that season if you don't have David Wright. So now that you possibly could not have David Wright, what do you do now? What do you do now? And the answer is you go ahead and you turn over to your freshman quarterback, Key Brown. Maybe you can strike fire again. And I want to point out that HBCU Premier Sports. I thought I had a cough. HBCU Premier Sports did say that he is presently sidelined. He's presently sidelined, which means that Clark is clearly going to fight this. And I do think that this is a fight that they should win. I really do, because 5 games is not a lot. It's not even half of the season. And you had a significant injury. So you probably suffered that injury in the beginning of the game. I think that you have strong legs to, no pun intended about the ACL, but I think you have strong legs to stand on in this situation, because it's not a long time. It was a missing season essentially. So I'll be interested to see how it goes, but clearly Clark is going to fight this, as they should. But Teddy Keaton did the right thing. If I don't know the future of my quarterback, you want to get this new quarterback in immediately for a couple of reasons. One, hey, I need more reps. Like, just at the end of the day, if you're going to be my starting quarterback, ideally you would go through the spring. But if I got to get you something, let's go through the end of the spring. Let's go through the summer. I feel like David Wright has shown himself capable in my offense 2 years in a row. If he gets cleared a week before week 1, I don't necessarily think I need him taking all the number 1 reps. If they plan on fighting it, I still expect him to practice if that's allowed. I would expect him to practice. I would expect him to be around the facility. I would expect him to still be throwing. I know he can do those latter 2. He might not be able to practice because eligibility questions are still in the air, but he can, I'm sure he can be in meetings. They can't take that away from him. He can throw the ball. It might not be during practice, but he can get some of his teammates, work on chemistry, work on timing. He can do that. But if he is practicing, David Wright is my QB2 from now on. Let's be very clear. With the questions around David Wright's eligibility and whether or not they're going to approve his redshirt year from 2022, every time that he's on the field, he's not my QB1, because I have to prepare somebody to be my QB1. David Wright is my quarterback 2 until his eligibility is sorted out. And even if that happens 2 days before the game, I think that Wright at least is seeing the game plan, and he's talented enough, he's experienced enough within this system to not need the whole ramp up. But let's imagine I'm using him as QB1 and then I never get this cleared. So now the guy I've been using as QB2 has to step in. But we know the second string quarterback does not get the same amount of reps. And he's a freshman. We're talking about Key Brown. That is poor planning. I think that the risk of risk of rust for David Wright is a better gamble to take than hoping that Key Brown is able to be a starting quarterback after taking backup snaps for 3-4 months. That's me. And from what I heard, it seemed like he did all right. Second reason I would want to get my other quarterback in there is because what if I do need to go to the portal? I don't know how long they've been dealing with this. I don't know how long. I did hear the whispers that Clark could be getting a new quarterback. I was confused. Like, who is replacing David Wright? Like, who's so good that they're pushing out Wright? And then also, why would Clark want to get rid of Wright? Why would you even have a competition? But obviously, I got some of my answers on that question. For me, I'm kind of looking at it as if I don't like what my QB2 is doing, QB2 turn 1, I'm going to hit the portal and try to get something. I'm going to hit the portal and try to get something, because this is a killer. Having your quarterback out is an absolute killer. So I would do my best to ensure that I am prepared for every circumstance. Worst case, David Wright, my SIAC player of the year, bounces back and we're back to business as normal, which is what I do think will happen. But anyway, Clark and Morehouse end up having a joint spring practice. Can't say I co-sign that. I love the idea. I do think that teams should play other teams for their spring game. I think that's a really good scrimmage and allows you to get looks from other teams. It's the reason that NFL teams do joint practices. I don't think I would have done that with a team that is in my conference. I get it. Proximity, it works. But at the end of the day, Clark and Morehouse are competing for the same thing. And I don't necessarily know if I would have. I got to stop doing this. I'll be too passive sometimes. I would not have used Morehouse as the team I scrimmage against, because they're going to get something from it. I'm not saying they're going to get a lot. It might even be just a minuscule amount of information. But I don't want you to get any. I don't want you to get a dime out of me. That's how I am. When it comes to information and this, I think we should all proceed like Mr. Krabs. You ain't getting nothing from me. I don't care if it's the smallest. I don't care if it's a rock that fell off of a boulder. If I own the boulder, you ain't getting a pebble. That's how I feel. But obviously they didn't feel that way. And I mean, you could get information on them. So it works both ways, but I'm a relative risk averse person. And even if the reward is there, there's an equal chance of reward and risk. And that's too much for me. I like way more opportunity for reward than there is for risk. But we're going to keep rolling and we're going to take a look at Diamond Johnson. Some of the reactions. Not going to talk too much about it because this just happened as we're recording. But it's tough news. We're going to get into it as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? I thought it was there. I swear it was there. I saw it. My eyes aren't lying to me, but now I don't see it. It could be dining out, could be shopping, could be entertainment, whatever. It's a lot of things that we end up spending money on and we lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. The beautiful part about it is you can get this app and this app and this app and this app, but instead you just condense it into Monarch. So no more juggling a bunch of apps. Just get one. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Once again, that's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On College, and you'll get half off your first year. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Diamond Johnson didn't get drafted in the WNBA draft. I'm going to read off a couple of tweets, but I also want to give my personal opinion. So, Norfolk State Women's Basketball Associate Head Coach, Coach Fox, had a tweet that I thought was a pretty good one. Honestly, I thought that this was very realistic and very honest. She said, respectfully, there's no way that Diamond Johnson isn't on any WNBA draft boards. If it's only because she chose to play for an HBCU after killing it on the court at Big Ten and ACC schools, it's really sad. Stats don't lie, and the work will show. Keep watching. Somebody else says, Diamond Johnson was projected to go in the first round while at North Carolina State. Went to an HBCU, killed it in the MEAC, and goes undrafted. Live for Hoop says, hope Diamond Johnson gets a camp invite because she'll go there and do what she's done everywhere else. It's laughable how they looked past her. This is just, it's funny to me because I felt, it's me. I will openly admit that I have some knowledge that is lacking when it comes to the W and the ways of it. I would imagine if it's difficult to make the roster as a late round pick, it's extremely difficult to make it as an undrafted free agent. I would assume that. I would assume that it's a rarity based on how people speak about the draft. What I'll say about Diamond Johnson is I thought she may go early. She ended up not going at all. The reason I thought that she would go early is because we've seen her do it at bigger schools. That's the part that's difficult for me to wrap my head around. Is it where you did it last? Because Zay Green got drafted and she went to Alabama from Arkansas Pine Bluff. So if Diamond Johnson would have went from Norfolk State to Rutgers, or Diamond Johnson would have went from Norfolk State to North Carolina State, would that have changed things? Is it the order? It has me wondering, because if you're going to tell me players who go to a higher level of competition and they show out, it benefits them, why, if she did as a freshman and a sophomore, is it any different? Do you think that her game regressed while she went to Norfolk State? Because she's been a dog those 2 years. I don't see that. You look at the Lilies All-Star game, I don't think that the participants of that game would say that Diamond Johnson has regressed. I think they would still say that she's a really talented player who's a good defender, good facilitator, she's a good scorer, good leader. She has all of these intangibles, both on and off the court. Just makes me wonder what it could be. What it could be. Diamond Johnson checked the boxes. We've all seen that Isaiah Thomas video where he says, I met the criteria, but I wasn't chosen. And that's kind of how I feel about Diamond Johnson. If you want to say she needs to dominate on this level, she did that. If you want to say she needs to go to all-star games against schools or players from other schools that are in bigger schools, bigger conferences, she's done that. And she was the MVP. She was dominant. Great scoring output. If you want to say she needs to actually go to a bigger school and show out, she did that too. So why? That's the part that's difficult for me to wrap my head around. She's checked all the boxes that people would tell her to pick. Is it size? Is it because she's a little smaller? I don't know. I feel like she's been productive enough, and I don't think she's that small. I mean, this one was difficult to wrap my head around. It didn't really make that much sense to me because I kind of banked on her hearing her name called. Let's see if there's any more tweets. Any more tweets to go through. A lot of these feel a little bit shady to me, so I'm gonna leave it alone. But it just doesn't make no sense to me. Just does not make any sense to me. I feel like she checked all the boxes, but that's tough. That's tough. I think we see what this is. What this is that at the HBCU level, the respect is not there. And also, I think the bigs are a little bit more beloved. But anyway, I'm not going to go too on about it. Diamond Johnson didn't get drafted. It's extremely disappointing and extremely surprising. I would like to hear the stories that come out after this to see if she makes it into a camp, see if she gets an invite somewhere, but she definitely deserves it. We'll be back tomorrow. Maybe another draft topic. Not quite sure. Got a couple queued up. Just a matter about when we pull it out. So in the meantime, in between time, until next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.